here in London. They did Robotopia. Has anybody seen that? Why are you laughing about Robotopia?
0 out of 3.
That's okay. I'm not going to hold it against you. Everybody else, though, they're in trouble. So my wife Circy'iego over here is laughing. Mr. Street. But this game, as I'm describing it, is steps of exposure and growth. And you have to plan that. When we got Robotopia, that was a slightly higher class game than what we've usually done, and that was able to open more doors for us, namely through distributing it through all the partners we had gathered, through our pad files, through news sites, through RSS feeds and such. It was this is the one that was picked up by VH1 through that. We were approached by Oberon. Okay, Oberon is like I'm sure people have heard of Big Fish Games, right? And what's another good one? Well, anyways, Big Fish Games is the big one. Real Arcade, that's another. That's the kind of company Oberon is, and they wanted to distribute it. And we're close to getting it done. It's all been signed and everything. They've gone through the bug testing phase. We're just having a problem being this was built 1.5 with a DLL issue. But then it will go on Yahoo, MSN, and AOL, and that'll develop an even larger sales record for us. And once you've reached a certain level of sales records, then I can begin to try to approach on our own retailers. Okay? Because right now all my retailing is done through distributors, and you know they're going to eat up most of the money. And that's not good for me, or the people who work with us. So, without an official planned speech, that is, in a nutshell, how we started with the company. We started with an idea, and then we worked on how to learn the idea and how to make it work. Then we completed one actual product, and then we tried to market that product. We researched the tools on how to market the product, and then that brought in new opportunity, and it's just grown from there. So I guess at this point, does anybody have any questions on that? Nobody. See, nobody wants to sell it. How about that Mr. Stump-Stencher? You spent 3 years on it.
I'm wondering, how did you get in contact with organizations like Big Fish Games and Real Arcade? They just contacted you, or?
Well, in the case of Oberon, they had our information because I had approached them about a prior game. Okay. Which meant that now I was in their system, and occasionally the account rep that I'm assigned would review our site and see what was new. We hadn't really released Robotopia at that point, and we were advertising it as a coming up game, and he approached us about it. So, when I had gone through the publication of Kinesis, I learned a lot of lessons, and one of them was to keep a database of every industry contact I can find, and let them know regularly what I'm doing. Keep Gamesare fresh in their mind, and by doing that, that's what scored more and more contacts, and then it spiders from there. Our initial thing we emailed and called. Believe it or not, telephone works really well too, because you're actually talking to somebody. An email can be deleted or ignored. Big Fish Games, Real Arcade, in my opinion, Real is kind of the nastiest people to deal with. Oberon, and there's a couple others. If anybody's interested in publishing it, I have the list obviously saved. I don't mind sharing it. I got a lot of good information from Addictive 24/7 initially too. He's a good guy. The mission, our company mission, has always been to deliver high-quality content that can compete with traditionally developed titles by using Multimedia Fusion. And the advantage for an independent studio using Multimedia Fusion is that your costs drop significantly. If I'm programming, let's say, for instance, Bali Adventure, okay? That game was, the original Luxor was programmed by 4 different people, and it took them almost a year to complete. We did Bali Adventure in a month and a half. That's a huge difference. And by keeping my costs down, that allows me to survive longer because I'm not having to cover any incidental costs. I don't have a lot of labor, a lot of employees and such. So that allows us to play and survive longer and gamble in other areas. So, does that answer the question? I don't know who asked it. Anybody else have a question?
Other demos if you will place this game.
Yeah, what would you? Well, we've got all sorts of games here. One thing I'm going to show you is the flame object. Anybody heard of the flame object? Yes. Would you like to see the flame object?
Yes.
The biggest problem for it not being released is it was running fairly slow. It was 20 frames per second is about the best we could get. But I'm assuming with hardware acceleration that that shouldn't be an issue anymore.
Would have to be rebroken.
You think so?
Yeah.
So the existing extension wouldn't work?
You'd have to use pixel shaders.
Pickles. Well, anyways.
No, pixels.
No, pickles. Pickles. Anyways, this is the flame object. Once it's finally released, there's several aspects of it you can control. You can control the velocity that the flame is moving, the speed of the flame, how fast it travels up. You can control the direction in 360 degrees of where it's burning. And you can even, let's see, change the, you can have an alpha channel on it. Here's some demos of what can be done with it. This was done when it was originally made, the waterfall example. That looks pretty nice. Plasma, maybe little energy beams or whatever. Lava. Maybe little fireballs popping out. Kind of hot, let's get out of there. Fireworks, I took that really cool firework animation and then overlaid the flame object on it, and it gives it that little kind of glow effect. The fountain. Underwater. Looks pretty decent, I think. What do you think? Audience members?
Cool.
Thank you.
How many frames do you have with?
Well, right now on these size apps, it depends on the application. I'm using it in MMF2 now on several of our projects, and I don't have slowdown. But the way the application works is you drop your flame object onto your frame editor, and then you drag and drop a box of the area of which the flame object will affect. The larger the box, the slower it runs. So I successfully used it without any problem on smaller applications. But it's the bigger apps, plus it won't run in 256. So a game like Robotopia, it wouldn't work. Scanner here. And then when it releases, we're going to include the gradient maker with it, which allows you to design and test different gradients. Like if I wanted to make kind of a ghosty kind of effect, like an ethereal ghost burr effect, then I'd set my colors and then set the gradient, and it will automatically change it for you. And then you can save the gradient, enter the name, and then you can view your gradients. And it'll come with a big library of gradients and a library of actual flame objects that have already been set a certain way, so that you can just drag and drop it in there. So look forward to that soon. We got a webcam object coming soon too, for those folks who want to mess with webcam.
Sorry, is the frame object be released for free?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Here's another game we're working on, very early, but I can show you a couple things.